Hello, and welcome to PJ and the Beard. This is our 19 conversation series. This is conversation number 50. How did that happen? Joining us today on the show, give it up for. Welcome to the stage, Johnny Eli. Man, how you doing?
Hello, I'm good.
So, people might have been following a little bit. We told them that you would be on today, and just for some background, I met Johnny in like 1999, probably, as a first-year teacher. So I was a kid when I met Johnny. And since then, Johnny's gone on to do some pretty cool stuff. We're going to get into that here in a little bit, all the stuff that he's been doing. But it's kind of like really special for me to have a former student sitting on the show with me. It's a trip.
It's awesome, man. It's great for me, too. So cool.
So one of the things Pat and I have been doing is starting with a clip of the day, and I thought that this would be kind of a cool place to start. So we've scoured the internet to find the perfect clip. Sometimes it's a guitar player that we think people might not be familiar with, or one I like that I don't think Pat's familiar with, or vice versa, or something like that. But since we had you on the show today, this is the clip we found. But I have to pause and figure out how to share it. Give me one sec.
Okay.
Here we go. So, clip of the day.
Nice.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Baby, say yeah, sha-da-da, sha-da-da, sha-da-da.
Hopefully Norm will mind us giving this shop a shout out with that.
Yeah, Sean, man, he's that guy he has not been playing guitar for that long, probably like 5 or 6 years, 6 years maybe. And he has just developed this like absolute love for it, man, and he's gotten some serious chops. And they play live, like we talk about, like they play live in the show, and he plays guitar, and Nate, one of the other guys in the group, plays bass, and it's really cool, man. It's a cool kind of thing.
So people in the chat, and real quick, there's a bunch of people in the chat already, right? So we have Brian Landreth is here, Paul Ewing is here, Pete Hickson. It's like Romper Room here. We always call Corona. Kitty Cat.
There's several people saying
familiar to you, Johnny.
Several people saying they don't have sound.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Two or three actually.
Could you hear it?
I could hear everything.
Yeah.
Not sure what happened. Pete Hickson, Dave Timlin. Is that a name that we recognize?
That's a
Dave Timlin. Dave Timlin is that's definitely a name that we recognize.
That's a name we recognize. Hey,
Dave and I. Yeah, we played music all through when I first met you and stuff. I mean, you remember, Dave? We've been bands together since like the late '90s, like '98, like 8th grade. We were like playing music together, and we still play music together, which is great. Every time I'm home, man, we talk guitar. We have some groups. Him and my brother Jimmy Eli, who told me to tell you hello. And
I was going to ask you about him.
And Kyle Palmer. You remember Kyle Palmer as well?
Absolutely.
Kyle has a great pedal collection, and he actually turned me on to your show. He was the first one to tell me about it.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Man, this is great, man. Like, there's a whole bunch of names. Yeah.
A lot of these people are coming off of your show, which is awesome. This is great.
Yeah,
so
some other ones. Yeah.
Some of them, Sound Propeller, we saw him last night. Guitar Hack. There's your brother Jim in the chat. Hey, Jim, how's it going, man? I was going to ask Johnny about you at some point. So Peter to Bad. Great guitar man. So here we go. I don't want to spend too much time in the chat. Whenever we have a guest on, we like to focus on that guest. So tell people. I mean, Johnny, people might not understand. Some people might know, like, why in the world will we hit like on a guitar channel be picking a clip of Sean Stockman from Boyz II Men?
Yeah. Well, I've been. Yeah, totally. I mean, I've been their monitor guy now for 2 years, a little over 2 years. I've worked sporadically with a couple of other bands, but mainly just like exclusively with those guys, you know, and they've been great. And also Sean, since I said they've been playing guitar in the show and stuff like that, I've kind of been his like unofficial guitar tech. You know, I've been building his pedal board for him and maintaining some of his stuff. And between myself and the guitar player for Boyz II Men, we kind of like take care of his stuff. The pre-show stuff I can't do, like making sure everything's tuned before it goes out, whatever, because I'm doing my own thing like the guitar player does. And it's been awesome. But yeah, Sean, he's making a name for himself in the guitar world, which is really cool. Because obviously he's been a serious singer for a long time. You know, 91, I believe, was their first album. So he's kind of breaking into a new sort of solo vibe. Sometimes, you know, doing guitar stuff, and it's been really cool to watch.
He's playing nice stuff in the clip, and then of course when you got Tim Pierce playing lead over top of you.
Yeah.
So when you started this kind of like I want to know, like, how do you get from wherever to I'm doing monitor mix, you know, the monitor engineer for Boyz II Men, and there's others. So maybe talk about some of those along the way, but
yeah.
Where'd you get the start? How did you get here? So this is the selfish part of this thing right now, ladies and gentlemen, because I want to hear the story.
Cool. Well, I mean, as you know, high school, we were playing music a lot. We started Guitar Club. There's always been a thing for music there, you know, in my life. And I was playing in a lot of bands and it, you know, it all kind of, if I go way back, it all sort of started, we wanted to record a demo and we were like, didn't have any money and we didn't know what to do. So I was like, let me try to figure something out. And that was when I first really kind of sparked the whole, oh, wow, like music production is kind of cool, you know? And we worked from there and recorded some demos and then started tracking local bands. And I ran that little studio for a while. And then finally decided to go to school for it. I waited a little while. So I was 22. I went to Sheffield Institute of the Recording Arts outside of Baltimore. And as soon as I graduated there, I got a job offer to go work for Ringling Brothers Circus, which I see actually in the chat, a guy named Danny Pelez is in there. He actually interviewed me, my very first interview for the circus. He was the head of audio on the Red unit in Baltimore. They were at the, I believe it was First Mariner back then. I think is it Royal Farms Arena now?
I think that's right.
Yeah. It was First Mariner then, I believe. But yeah, I went and interviewed with Danny, and then a few months later, I got offered a job on a different circuit, a different unit, touring unit, and took it and just went and started working for the circus and did that for a few years. My brother actually joined then too, and became like a lighting guy and then a pyro guy, and yeah.
So nobody had to walk around with a shovel behind the elephants. So
actually, we could talk to my brother about that. He was he when he first got there, he was like starting from scratch because he didn't really know what he wanted to do. But then pyro kind of revealed itself, which is perfect. And
right.
My brother.
It's like
the fact that like Jim Eline has become a pyrotechnics, guy is like Destiny 101. Like it's like fate came in and was like, we've got this one for you.
We got the perfect job for you.
Yeah, exactly.
You clean up after the elephants for a little while. We'll let you blow stuff up.
You get to blow stuff up. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, man, after, the circus went for a while, we went all over the country. I met my wife there, which was cool. So it was a great experience. But after that, I stayed in the family entertainment world for a minute, and was working for Marvel Universe Live, which was the first Marvel show that they did, the touring show, which was a huge thing. And I was the head of audio on that, which was quite a task. We had we had 96 boxes of MLA, which is like a Martin Audio line array system. We had, 8 hangs of 12, and we had front fills, and there were a lot of subs, and it was like a huge thing. that I just somehow one day woke up and was like responsible for. I was like, okay, cool. And we took that around I did a year of that. And then actually ran into Danny Pelez again. I'm going to drop his name again. The guy in the chat, he was working as a local sound guy, like helping out my crew. I was up in front of house, like on the concourse level, and I hear somebody yell my name. I'm like, what's going on? And I get a text, and it's Danny. And he goes down, and he was helping my crew like do something or work something out on the floor. And I talked to him, and it was right when I had put in my 2 weeks notice. That was like, because I was leaving, I was getting married. I was going to try to figure something else out and try to figure out what I wanted to do. And Danny actually was working for Eighth Day Sound at the time, and I think he still does. And he was like, hey, man, why don't you send a resume in, and I'll put in a good word. And I did that and put Danny down as a reference. And Tom, the owner of Eighth Day, developed like a kind of a soft spot for circus guys, because he had gotten a few other guys who had left the circus and came there, and they were really good workers, and he really liked what they did. So Danny kind of was my foot in the door, and that was when I first got my first like rock and roll, like real rock and roll tour, which happened to be Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life tour, which was like unbelievable. And I went from screaming little kids and like Wolverine, you know, like jumping off a motorcycle to like Stevie Wonder and his massive, you know, super talented band. And it was just like, yeah, it was crazy. And since then it's been, you know, it's been a lot. That was 2015, that Stevie Wonder tour. And since then it's just kind of, I've been leapfrogging artists, and Eighth Day gave me a lot of work. I got to do, you know, like a shout out to that company. They're a wonderful company, great people. And, you know, they really took care of me when I was kind of like, all right, what's next, you know?
Two things in the comment. Brody said a literal meaning of run off and join the circus.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And Brad Miller was commenting that's a pretty nice first concert gig. You know, sort of looking at your resume, we did the clip of the day, and the brilliance of Jason is the one that picked the Sean Stockman clip, because I'm going down other paths, right? I'm going down Stevie Wonder. Let's see. Oh, yeah, SRV played a version of Superstition. Like, that's a sneaky way to sneak SRV on there. And then I think you've done some work with, you know, like Paula Abdul. And I think Paul Gilbert covered, you know, did his own version of, like, you know, Cold Hearted Snake or something. But, yeah, it's really interesting, you know, going down the list of people that you've traveled with and worked with. And
it's been a lot of just different people, and just different environments and different demographics, and just like, you know, from family entertainment, you got little kids, and then Stevie Wonder, you have like, you know, his crowd was like just super chill, and everyone was like so just happy to be there and be witnessing this thing, you know. And then there's like, you know, I've done some hip hop tours where, you know, things can get pretty rowdy, you know, and stuff goes crazy. And then, you know, also I've worked with some rock bands where I've seen things get pretty rowdy too. I don't know if you guys are familiar with a band called Black Rebel Motorcycle Club. I did monitors for those guys for a little while. They are a great band. If people haven't checked them out, they are just like, if you just want like a rock and roll band that's just delivering, you know, like just some serious rock, that is a great band to get into. They're super talented. But yeah, I've seen some crowds go crazy. I also worked for Slayer for a little bit. And if you also want to see like a crowd, you want to see a difference, I worked for Slayer directly after I worked for Stevie Wonder.
It has to be like night and day, right?
Yeah, I went from Stevie to Slayer, and it was just like, oh, okay, all right, this is a different vibe. It was awesome. It was great, and they were really great guys, and the whole crew was amazing. But you know, went from 160 inputs on stage to, you know, like 24, you know, and it also went from like arenas to clubs, and it was just cool it was cool to get out and experience as much as possible. You know, that first year that I was out after Marvel was pretty intense. I had done some festivals too, and there was just a lot of different things happening. You know, it was really awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what was your, I don't know, like I know you've traveled all over the place, right? Like countries all over the world.
Yeah.
What was your favorite? What's the like venue? Let's start there. Like maybe the favorite place you ever ran sound, like the most.
Oh man, that is a great question. Wow, favorite venue. And
that can be anywhere.
Man, you know, there's so many great bands. I mean, I remember doing, You know, the 930 Club was special for me.
Yeah, in DC, it's a cool place.
Because I saw a lot of shows there, you know, and going back and being like on the stage and doing, you know, being like the sound guy and kind of being on the other side of things and up in the dressing rooms and like the whole thing. That one was kind of special. That was really, really special. And the 930 is just a great venue anyway. They always, when you come in there, like catering, they always give you these cupcakes and they do a little 930 like on top of the cupcakes with icing, which is just kind of like their signature move. So that was cool because I'd heard of that before and seen it and seen people take pictures. And I was like, oh, awesome. I'm actually like here now.
I got to see Prince at the 930 Club. He had played at the Cap Center and did like an after hours show. It was like 2:30 in the morning. Like, and there's Prince, and I'm trying to be like, this is a moment I got to hang on here. But yeah, that's a really cool place. It's not very big.
No, and it's not it's not like there's nothing crazy fancy going on, you know, but it's just a great club.
So we had I saw Clingers and Readers Cafe down there in the
Oh, dude, all day. Who said Clingers and Readers? Clingers definitely was one of my favorite venues of all time. That Clingers, rest in peace, man. That place was.
Oh, I know.
Their blues nights on Wednesday nights.
One of my favorite nights places to see blues bands.
Yeah, it was great, man. There were so many good acts that came through there. Like
that's why I was always tired on Thursday morning.
Yeah, yeah.
That was
younger.
That was the teacher's little secret.
Mm-hmm. And I guess Sonny Orioles, maybe your dad?
That's my dad, yeah.
So he said your experience in Nice, France was intense.
Yeah, that was an intense one. We were there. I was on tour with Rihanna, and we were doing the I forget the name of the stadium. That was a stadium tour that we did in Europe. We were in Europe for like 3 months, and we did all stadiums, which was just like it was hot. The sun was beating down. We got a lot of rain because you're in, you know, especially in like certain parts of, you know, when we were in like London and places like that, it just rained. You know, the summer over there is just pretty rainy. Yeah, Nice was intense. I was there when they had there was like a terrorist attack that happened when there was a guy who drove like a box truck through. It was Bastille Day. It was, and he like, I'm sure you guys remember that from the news and everything.
Right.
Well, I was there for that. I was actually we had a show the next day, so we'd loaded into like noon, and then we had the rest of the day off. So I was down there on the promenade hanging out. I was in the beach. I was whatever, and a friend of mine was getting a little tired and whatever, and I wasn't really. You know, people were out drinking and having a good time, and I was kind of like, oh, I'm tired. It's gonna be a long day tomorrow. I'm gonna cash it in right after we left. Like we were in an Uber while that happened, so we had left immediately, like right as it was about to happen, which was very lucky. Some of the other people in the crew were there, and they saw some things that weren't necessarily things you want to see in your life and stuff like that. But it was intense, man. It was intense. They locked the hotel down. It was a serious thing. But yeah.
Yeah,
Nice, France. Yeah, man. That's the thing about traveling. It's like when you expose yourself to so many environments and so many different places and whatever. It's just like you are running risk to experience things that aren't great. You know, you experience a lot of really, really amazing things, and you meet a lot of really, really amazing people. But also, there are a few things that aren't super great, and you know, you do meet some people that maybe you're all right with not seeing again. You know?
Right.
You know, you don't wish them any ill will, but it's like, that's cool. We'll probably never see you again. That's all right.
Yeah, you live life over there. That's okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Enjoy it.
I'll look for you on TMZ.
So
exactly.
Let's while we're in this and talking about it, like, so what helped me out a little bit, helped everybody out, I guess, on what it is exactly you do. And I'm going to, you know, like people say, well, you're name dropping now, but we want you to do that because we want to send a signal here that, you know, like this, we're not just talking about somebody who has some knowledge of this subject. It's somebody has knowledge of the subject at a level that he's the guy sitting behind the board for Rhiannon or Stevie Wonder or Slayer or whoever, right? So what is it that your job is typically on those tours, Boys to Men?
Well, on those tours, those were some of my early on tours, like Stevie Wonder and Rihanna. I was monitor teching and doing the RF. So I was doing all the radio frequency coordination, and I was basically coming in and setting up monitors, you know. On Stevie Wonder, there's a girl named Kristen Dean who was like the monitor tech, and she actually got to mix Stevie's ears at the end of that gig, which is pretty amazing. But he had 2 engineers. There was an engineer just for him, and maybe the background vocalist. But I mean, he just had like his guy, and then there was another engineer who mixed all the mixes for the band. So that's kind of how they did that one. And I would help them set all that stuff up every day. And then that tour was just like a ton of RF coordination. Like they had so many wireless packs and so many wireless microphones. And there were just like crazy guests that were coming all the time. So you'd have spare frequencies and spare mics. And, you know, they would set up an extra guitar rig. Like I remember Prince came to a show. He didn't actually end up playing, but he came and he was backstage. But we had a rig set up for him for just in case he wanted to come out and play, you know. So it was just, there was a lot of that I did on those earlier tours. Like, Stevie was just a ton of RF. I did get to give him his microphone every night, which was the coolest experience of the whole thing. It was an interesting thing when that first started. I was like, well, how do I get, like, what do I do? You know, like, how do I give this man his microphone?
Right.
And they're like, just say, you know, we'll introduce you to him, and then just tell him, you know, every night that, hey, I got his mic, and he would just put his hand out, and I would just put it in his hand, basically, and then he'd grab it. But that was a cool experience. I got to do that every night, which was really, really cool. And the first night I remember I was like, yeah, you know, it's great to meet you. Should I call you Mr. Wonder, Stevie? Like, what do you? And he's like, oh, you can call me Steve. And I was like, are you sure? Just to make a joke. I was like, man, I know. Are you sure, just Steve? And he was super cool, and he was a really nice guy. But yeah, those were my duties on that one. And then patching the stage was like a thing. Like I said, there were a lot of inputs on that. You know, he's got 2 drummers and a horn section and background singers on both sides of the stage, and 2 percussionists and 2 guitar players. And he had the original bass player from the album, Nathan Watts, played on that tour, which was incredible. But yeah, Greg Fillinganes, who was like the MD he was the MD on that, which was incredible too. He had to leave right before the tour ended, I think, because his wife was pregnant. And he had to leave for that. But it was, just some of the people. I mean, for being my first tour outside of just like, you know, a bunch of like acrobats and stuff like that, which is awesome. They're extraordinary people. But when you like leave that and then you go and then you're like, you walk in to do your job and you see like Greg Fillinganes and Stevie Wonder rolls, and you're just like, where am I? Like, what happened? Like, this is, do I even deserve this? Like, what is going on? You know, it's just all these thoughts run through your head, and you're just like, wow, this is a real thing I'm responsible for. So don't screw up. You know? Right. You've been given this opportunity. Don't screw it up. But yeah, that was really great, man. That was a great experience. But did I go off top? Did I go on a tangent?
No, my
there?
gosh. No.
Oh, no, you're right. So keep going. So now we're doing, you're doing that with Stevie.
I'm going to extend that just a little bit since we're still on. I can't call him Steve, but you can. Steve's life. Steve. Like, who's that? Like Urkel?
Yeah.
Who's Steve? Like you said, there was a lot of guest spots. Who was like, other than Prince didn't actually play, like who was someone you're just like, I mean, for Greg Fillinganes being the music director, that's one thing. That dude is playing for everybody. And
well, my first night we were in Denver. We did the Pepsi Center, which is also great. I love that venue. That's a really cool. But I walk in, you know, and I'm doing my thing, and I get my RF settled, and I'm kind of like starting to take a breath, like, whew, all right, cool. Showtime's in about 45 minutes. I'm gonna go to catering and finally eat something. I'm gonna, you know, this is all right. Let's get this going. And then production manager comes up to me and he's like, hey, we need 2 extra packs and 2 microphones. I was like, oh, and he's like, get them quick. We need them quick. Chicorea and Herbie Hancock are coming tonight. And you need to have in-ears for them. And I was just like, yes, sir. Like, oh, God. So that was, you know, and then they came out and I had to give them their stuff right before they went out. And it was just, it was pretty much like the first night was just like, hit the ground running, like be prepared. And every night he had guests, you know. Dave Chappelle came out a lot, which was really cool. He would just come out and like just like hang out and be on stage, and I mean, they had the original guitar player who I am horrible that I cannot remember this man's name, but he played on the record, like on the Songs in the Key of Life record, and he came out one night and played like all of his stuff, like, and it was just like, it was magical to witness because this dude just like just nailed like every part. It was insane.
Wow.
But
That's fantastic.
yeah, I mean, Queen Latifah would come out. A lot of people on that, man. It's just hard to even. Steven Tyler, I remember when we were in Nashville, which those of you who don't know, that's like where I live. So it was like the hometown show, and my wife was there, and it was like super cool. That one was, I think, at the end of the show, it was like Steven Tyler and Dave Chappelle and India Arie, and it was like the whole stage was just like full of guests, and it was a pretty amazing show. Yeah, but that was like every night. It was just always something. It was always somebody's coming, or so you could get this ready, or somebody's going to be doing this, or have a guitar rig set up for this person. Or it was awesome, man. It was
I mean, the guy's like
experience.
music royalty for sure. I mean, Stevie Wonder is unbelievable. I mean, take the blindness aside,
and I mean that album,
right? Yeah.
I mean, he like would play every instrument on some of those records. Like he would just like track the drums, and his memory, his song bank there's like no words can't even really express just how amazing it is. He would do a different encore every night, and the band would just have to fall in, and he'd play stuff that sometimes I'd talk to like the drummer, a guy named Stanley Randolph, who was great drummer. He'd just be like, yeah, we haven't played that one in a few years. I'm just like, wow. And they just would crush it. They would just crush it. And it's just, that's their job, and they're just extremely good at it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you go from Stevie doing that. When do you make the switch over to? Because right now, with Boys and Men, you're doing what? Monitor engineer.
Yeah, monitor engineer. So I was working for. I did about a year and a half with Rihanna as the monitor tech and RF guy on that, and I started mixing some openers. There were like a lot of opening acts on that, and they were like, "Hey, you want to mix monitors for these guys?" I was like, "Absolutely, give me any shot I can to get on the desk, like let's do it." So I was doing that, and then just mixing a few bands here and there, and just doing stuff. Whenever I had downtime between tours, I would try to like go out and mix some shows and do some stuff. And then I started. There's a band called Death from Above 1979, which are like a 2-piece. It's a bass player and a drummer. And they're great. They're a great band. And they did a co-headliner with Black Rebel Motorcycle Club. And I went out and actually mixed monitors for both headliners on that. And that was right after Rihanna. So that was like I'd been touring, doing rock and roll stuff for about a year, like 2 years at that point, 2.5 maybe. Probably 2. And then I just started doing, after that, it was pretty much exclusively mixing gigs. I would occasionally go out and tech. Every once in a while, I'd do some 8th day gigs here and there, and just try to be monitor tech, or if they needed an RF guy or whatever, I would try to be there. But I just started getting more calls from actual bands managers and saying, hey, or fellow colleagues. There's a great guy named Jordan who mixes monitors for Taylor Swift, and he got me a Alanis Morissette gig. He called me and was like, hey, I got called to do Alanis Morissette. You want to do it? I can't do it. You want to do it? And I was like, yeah, definitely. And that was basically right after that Death from Above tour. And then I went in and, I was mixing monitors for Alanis for like 9 or 10 months. That was great. From then it's all kind of word of mouth. You go out and you try to do the best you can, and you try to develop a nice relationship with the artist and be respectful and always just listen to production, because those guys have a million things going on. And sometimes even if you feel like they aren't making the right decision, you got to kind of go with it. And you got to be like a serious team player, and they'll keep calling you back. If you're
so
good.
You're calling Nashville home now. Like how much of a gypsy have you had to be in this whole journey of yours?
Yeah, well, man, you mean just like the amount of traveling?
Well, where's your home base been? Like, obviously, you're going to travel all over the world and go where bands take you, but
until January of 2015, I was still living in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And then January 2015, my wife and we got married. I quit my job working for Marvel. We got married and we moved to Nashville all at the same time. And I really wasn't sure. I didn't have any work lined up, honestly. I talked to 8th Day at the time, and there was some stuff going on, but we were just, we were just riding it out, you know, and she's from Brazil. So we were waiting for all of her visa stuff to work. So she couldn't work either. So we're just kind of here in this apartment in Nashville that we used to live in. We're just like, let's see what happens. You know, we jumped in with both feet, high risk, high reward, hopefully. And then 2 weeks later, I got a call from Tom at Eighth Day, and he was like, hey, you're leaving for Stevie Wonder in 2 weeks. And I was like, I am? He's like, you are. And I'm like, okay, great. Let's do this.
Let me see if I'm free. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, that's how a lot of those gigs come up, man. I mean, sometimes you'll get a call at 8:30 in the morning and they'll say, can you be on a plane at noon? Like, you know, sometimes it's because somebody gets let go, which is always unfortunate, or sometimes it's just because something fell through, or they just need somebody.
It's fantastic to be in that rotation, though. That's great.
Yeah, I was the guy for a very, very long time. And my wife, bless her heart, Paula, is like the most amazing, most supportive woman on the planet. And she's just like, there have been times where I would be like, hey, I just got a call. I have to leave today. I'm going to be gone for 30 days. What are your thoughts? And she'd be like, do it, you know, like do it. And, you know, just do the best you can. And she just knows that it's such a passion of mine. And, you know, I've worked at it for so long.
At some point, does she go, did I marry someone from the CIA? What is going on?
Yeah, exactly. She thinks I'm like a spy.
Yeah. Jason Bourne? What is happening?
Yeah, running covert operations somewhere.
Yeah, Paul's in the chat. Paul's in the chat saying that you.
Hey, look at that! Awesome. See, like I said, very supportive.
Right.
Yeah. She's been incredible. I mean, I've been doing this now for 5 years of just like a lot of touring. You know, being gone a lot and flying her out when I can and just doing whatever we can. And she's been great. But I mean, we met on tour. So it's kind of like, it wasn't like surprise one day, like, hey, sorry, I do this thing where I have to be gone all the time. It's like she knew, you know, she knew, she accepted it, you know, and accepted me for who I was and what I wanted to do. So it's been amazing.
I have a feeling you're not going to cross her either.
No. No. She's a South American fitness personal trainer. Like, you know what I mean?
Like, I have a feeling you're not going to cross her.
They're not sure.
She'll kill me. She'll kill me.
That's right. And we won't know where the body is, so it's good.
Exactly.
There's questions.
Yeah, let's hit some questions.
I think. Well, there were a question that was asked very early on. So we've gotten to the point, I think, where, you know, you're the monitor mix engineer. So with this is interesting to me because, like, the artists, the sound they're getting in their ears is the sound that you're feeding to them. So if like the front of the house doesn't sound good, they might not know it, but they know if you're not doing your job because you're in it. And so somebody asked, he tries to work with the sound engineer, but he can't always hear himself play. If he can't, then if the sound engineer won't turn up the monitors, then he's left with two options: stop playing or crank it up. What would be your advice to that? That's a great.
Man, at that point, I mean, you just need to have like a serious conversation with your monitor guy and be like, hey man, this is a problem. Like, I cannot hear myself. You know what I mean? Like, you really got to talk to him and say, hey, this isn't working. So let's start from scratch. And either, you know, a lot of times if you start from scratch, I mean, sometimes you don't have the time for that, obviously, but if you get any sort of sound check or anything, I mean, just starting with a clean slate and just being like, hey, let's just start. Just give me a little bit of kick drum. Okay, cool. You know, and whatever they want the most of in their mix, just have that. I mean, a lot of times I'll have them do that the whole time. Like, hey, you're a guitar player. You want mostly guitar. Just play your guitar. Just play it. Play naturally, play a couple songs, and I'm just going to start blending some stuff in for you and tell me if it's too much, or tell me if maybe you like what I did and you want a little more of that, you know, like some snare drum or some kick drum. And I'll just give them what I think maybe they're interested in, which is a lot of being a monitor engineer, is just deciphering what people are trying to tell you. Because that's the hardest part. I always refer to it as like stage side manner. You kind of got to be like very receptive and calm, and you have to be like, okay, cool. Like, because the last thing you need to do is get all worked up and bent out of shape over there, because that's going to reflect in the artist. You know, you're going to project that onto the artist, and then that's going to be reflected in the end result of the music they're playing. Because if they're not having a good time, then nobody's having a good time. So it's like, as the monitor guy, you really have to like have that. You know, and sometimes, you know, like certain artists and certain musicians, sometimes they're a little off the top, or they're like or over the top, and they're very, you know, they're just animated characters. You know, you work with some of these musicians, you're like, okay, this is going to be tough. I got to figure out And this guy has, worked with hundreds of monitor engineers, and I need to try to stick out and try to be one of the best ones he's worked with. So I really got to pay attention to this person and what their needs are and watch them. If you get the rest of the band settled in, just tell your monitor guy to watch you. Just be like, man, keep an eye on me and listen to my mix, because if something in the mix sticks out, if you're really paying attention to the mix and you're like, that didn't sound right, and you're watching the guy and he looks over at you at the same time you thought that didn't sound right, chances are that wasn't right. And then fix it and dial it back, and just pay attention, and but that's hard, depending on what size venues you're doing. Sometimes you got a house guy and he's got to do 8 bands, and like he really doesn't, give a shit. Like, pardon my language, I don't know if we swear on here, sorry, but it's like, it's one of those things where it's like he's burnt out, he did 6 bands last night and didn't leave the club till 4 a.m., and now he's back. And you just got to kind of show that compassion to the engineer, and they will show it back. Because I haven't really met any sound guys that are really just like bad guys, but I have met a lot of sound guys that are overworked and super stressed out, But if you talk to them and you just explain the problem the best that you can, usually you can find a pretty easy solution, Less is more most of the time also, less is more. Like if you're a guitar player, just pick, I need kick, snare, a little bit of the lead vocalist, the bass player, the other guitar player, maybe a little bit, and then just me right on top, And that's the kind of thing you just got to sort of like ease into that stuff,
Are you working mostly with in-ears now, or is there wedges that are being used still too?
Yeah. With Boys II Men, I have side fills that I use for part of the show. They get a little loud during part of the show. I mentioned how the guys play like bass and guitar for like a few songs. They do some covers and do some cool stuff. They do like a Beatles song. It's pretty cool. But the side fills get a little loud there because it's got to have a little bit of a stage presence and a stage vibe. But then they come down for the rest of the show. But there's a drum sub for the drummer, which is just all kick. That's just slamming him in the back. He just wants to feel it more than anything because he also has ears in. And then I have some utility wedges down front. But different. It's all kind of relative to the band. I mean, with Black Rebel, they were just like, this kick-ass rock and roll band. It was screaming side fills, screaming wedges, drum sub. The drummer wore in-ears, which she was the only one that wore in-ears in the whole band. The rest of the guys were relying very heavily on side fills and wedges that were very close to them because we were playing, we were doing House of Blues size venues and stuff like that. So a lot of times you don't have a ton of stage room. So when you have, 2 18s per side, and then you have tops on top of that, and then you've got, 6 wedges downstage, everything kind of gets, you start really having some issues with phase, and you have issues just like, when you start thinking like the physics of audio, there's just all sorts of stuff going on, and you have to be very attuned to that. And, it can be super difficult, but mainly, fortunately, people are just really, really getting into in-ears. And there's a lot of great in-ears that have been designed. I have an artist endorsement with a company called 64 Audio that I've been working with since Stevie Wonder. Like I met a rep on Stevie, and that was like, I talked to them, and I've developed a relationship with the company. And actually the last gig I did right before we flew home for this whole crazy pandemic thing, the day before I flew home, I was right there where their headquarters is out by Portland, Oregon. And I was able to go in and check it out. And they have that's a great company. But they, like I was saying about the advancements in that, like I'm actually wearing mine right now. So they have let me keep one in so I can hear you guys. They're doing developments like stuff like that. Like you see that little silver, I have the Pioneer plaque on there. You'll probably like that, Mr. Suda there. But like that little plug right there is called an Apex filter. And it actually bleeds off excess SPL in your ear. Because when you're wearing in-ears, like you get a little sound pressure build up in there. Like they can be uncomfortable, and that's why some people don't like them, or they can feel confined and you feel like the sound is right here. These have like such a wide, sound stage, and they great stereo image, and a lot of it has to do with that Apex module. It's like a one-way vent basically. You get some pressure build up, it bleeds it out, so your ear fatigue is lower, and you get a better stereo image just from all of that kind of coming together. But with advancements like that in in-ears, I mean, people, there's no reason you really shouldn't use them. I mean, it's great to have the feel of a wedge and stuff like that sometimes, but for longevity in your career and for the sake of your hearing, it's good to get a good set of in-ears and at least try to use them as much as you possibly can. I know it's really difficult for a lot of artists.
So the question I have is, people who wear ears at that point, they don't care where their amp is. Do they dial in their amp without the ears and then put them in? Like what's? I know it's different for every person, but
yeah, I mean, depending on the setup and how their tech. I mean, a lot of these guitar players just have their tech pretty much just everything's ready to go, and they hand them a guitar, and they walk out and do their thing. But I mean, they'll usually just have it set up and it's like dialed into a T. Most, like a lot of like when I worked for Atlantis, we had ISO cabs. I mean, it was basically a road case that, you put your amp in, and we had XLRs that were mounted right on the side of the case. So you just plug into the side of the case and they were parallel to the mic. And then we'd have two mics in there on the cabinet, and it would just stay closed. So when you're walking by it, you kind of hear like a little you can hear it in there, but it's like
some car with spinners next to you at the traffic light.
Totally, yeah, yeah. But it's just, we would do stuff like that because, I mean, with Atlantis, her voice is incredible, and it just, with a bunch of guitar amps on stage and stuff like that, with her microphone, you get a lot of bleed, and just the way that she sings. I'm sure everybody's seen. She's very her mic moves around quite a bit. And, depending on, sometimes the guitar players kind of have to, they don't like it. No guitar player on the planet likes not having their amp right behind them. And I can relate to that. Like, I've had lots of discussions with guitar players where hey man, I also love to play guitar. And I get it. You want to twist a knob. Like, if something's weird, you want to twist a knob, but there's so many variables between the amp and the listeners on stage, that it's like a losing battle. If you start turning your amp up and start tweaking stuff too much, that then affects everyone who has your guitar in their mix, because that's all pre-microphone, Mm-hmm. So from a monitor engineer's perspective, I'm like, yeah, you should have your amp nowhere near you. I don't want you to even be able to look at the thing. But as a guitar guy, I get it. So it's like, you kind of have to find this comfortable balance. With Atlantis, her guitar player, Jason Oram, he had his head behind him, and then the cab was off stage in an ISO box. So he could still tweak if he needed to and do his thing. And but if you have a combo,
right,
you're kind of SOL, in a lot of ways, because you just got to set it, and then that's what we're going with for the day, And if they need to come in and tweak some stuff, yeah, you can come in and fix things and stuff like that. But yeah, that's definitely a thing. The guitar player, guitar amp dynamic. A lot of times the monitor engineer has to come in and be like, "Sorry, man."
So you've had to be the villain and put on the Dracula cape and go in and
Exactly. Yeah.
So
be that guy more than once, and it's never pleasant. But if the end result, if what you're actually saying is true, and you can prove to them that you have a valid point and that what you're going to do is going to be better for everyone, then people are usually super cool about it. They're like, "Oh yeah, no, that was cool. That was great, cool."
Yeah.
But
so, and before I jump into the "please don't take my amp away" routine,
we're just going to make you like this.
Chat a little bit here, because there's been some stuff here, and we've been kind of ignoring the people there. But sorry. So let's see. Corona, your buddy in Washington State, he's the one that said clingers earlier, and
nice.
Let's see. Going down, there were some questions, and they've gone. Ask John about Panic at the Disco and Punches.
Oh man, no, that was a fun one. That was a really fun tour. I was monitor teching on that for a guy named Spud, their engineer, who's a great dude, really talented engineer. We were they had analog. They brought out a Midas XL250, I think, on that one. And I'm a huge analog. I'm an analog guy. That's another thing that I think has helped me out in the industry a little bit, because a lot of people my age, especially, I'm 34, so a lot of people are just straight digital, and fortunately, growing up in a small town, and not having access to crazy gear, analog, I'm all about it, and I've always worked on it, I've always loved it. So that was one of the reasons they asked me out on that gig was to do the to be there to kind of help tech this crazy analog desk and all these outboard, we had tons of outboard compressors and outboard gates and just all sorts of outboard gear, and we were doing a lot of interesting stuff. But that was fun. But all the time while the show was going on, I was behind the monitor engineer on a digital console, mixing the show just in case the analog console were to burst into flames.
Nice.
But yeah, that was kind of the Panic at the Disco thing. We also did, I don't know if you guys remember Tecmo Super Bowl, which is the NFL game for regular like NES, like original Nintendo. That tour we did like serious bracket tournaments of Tecmo Super Bowl. Like we were shooting like WWF style promos against each other and stuff, like airing them like before the show on the video screen and stuff. It was pretty. It was a very fun tour. But yeah, that's what Dave's talking about. Those crazy times on that tour. That was a blast.
Somebody asked, Kitty Cat asked about your experience of being down under.
Oh, that must be Cat. That's a friend of mine, Cat. She lives in Australia now. We worked together on the circuit. She was a lighting board operator. Yeah, it's so crazy because she had moved to Australia and I hadn't seen her in a while. And we toured together for years on the circus. And I went down there with Alanis and ended up seeing her in 2 different cities. We hung out in Brisbane and we hung out in Sydney, I believe. And we just went out and had dinner. Like it was her and her partner. And like it was awesome. Yeah. Yeah. That's another cool thing. 'Cause you meet a lot of people and then, you'll end up somewhere randomly. I mean, I was in Singapore and I ran into my old business manager and my old company manager from the circus. They were there with a monster truck show. And it was just really, really strange. I'm like, I'm in Singapore and it's like, here are these people I haven't seen in 5 years. And they're just like, here they are, and you're sitting there having a beer with them and talking about memories and you're in Singapore. It's strange.
Forget seeing them. We're monster trucking. Monster trucking in Singapore.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, a friend of mine was like he's like the guy, like the logistics guy for their show. So he was like, taking phone calls because like the dirt guy was trying to like move some more dirt, and like just weird stuff like that. You're like, cool, man, you're getting a phone call right now because there's a guy with a dump truck that needs to make a monster truck ramp.
Yeah, Gravedigger needs an extra scoop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Brad Miller asked how many drivers. I'm thinking maybe he was talking about the in-ears you were showing earlier.
Oh, yeah. These are actually these are A12Ts. So they're 12. They're not technically drivers. They're armatures, but there are 12 armatures per side. So there's, there's 4 low, 4 mid, and 4 high in this model. But they sound great. I mean, they sound great. They're also making 18 per year, which is what I have all the guys in Boys to Men on. That I use those when I'm with those guys. But
is Nathan East part of that group? Like he's a user of that.
So he is with 64 Audio. He helped develop the N8s, the Nates, which are like an 8. Those are great. Actually, just listen to a demo of those. They have incredible the low end definition in those. They're like, I mean, he's a bass player, and they're just like perfect for like if there's ever a bass player or a drummer, and they're like, hey, what model do you think I should get? Should I go for like the 18 and go for like the 12 and go for like the over the top crazy like? And then usually I'm like, you need to go with what's going to work for your mix. And if you like a lot of bass guitar and you like the kick drum and you like that drum feel in your mix, you've got to go with like an 8. Go with the 8s. The Nates, they're on another level, man. They sound great. For being like a smaller amount of drivers. Like it's just but also less is more sometimes, you see those old videos of airplanes taking off with like 30 wings and they just collapse, and then you see like the single wing, we're all in single wing airplanes.
So Hack said, who has another YouTube channel, he said he has to feel some air in the gig, and then underneath of that, Brian asked, are there bands that still do it old school and loud? So still running amp.
Yeah, there are a lot of bands that you'll find that a lot with hip hop too, man. Like hip hop stages are loud, very, very loud side fills, and they need to feel the bass. I mean, that's the whole vibe up there. It's just like, it's like thumping. Like it has to be, it has to be like in your chest, it has to sound like the front of house mix is happening on the stage. So it's very hard for the front of house guy most of the time.
That's been kind of my problem with the few times I've tried in-ears, and the in-ears I've tried, I'm going to say it's probably been 5 or 6 years ago, and I'm not sure they were great in-ears at that time. But my problem was always like, well, you know, and I'm never going to play on the big stage like that probably, but you know, they put the amp in the back room. All right, we're going to put your amp in the back room. Well, that's great because now my amp doesn't react to my guitar the way I'm used to my amp reacting.
I know, right?
Because they'll take it in another room and there's no sound. Then they stick the in-ears in, and then you feel like you're kind of like maybe playing along with the CD or something. Like you don't feel like, I always felt like you don't feel like you're like playing music anymore. You know, there's nothing moving. It's like everything is silent. So that silent stage thing kind of freaks me out. And Pat and I play together every Sunday at a church, and we don't do that. We still have amps on stage. We still have some monitors on stage.
You know why? Because I'm in control.
Right. He hasn't done that.
You don't have a monitor guy in there messing things up.
We're not going Helix or Kemper and having everything quiet. But I know that's been a big move for people. But I just does the new stuff get you past that? Do those better in-ears get you past that feeling? If I'm playing to a CD, I'm not really playing.
Yes and no. I mean, yes, the sonic, the ability to make things sound the way that you're describing, like where you're like not in your head, like I talked about earlier about how people were like weird about the focus of it. It's just like it's just in your head and it just doesn't feel like you're in a live environment. It just doesn't feel like raw. A lot of that can be solved with like audience mics are usually, you know, I'll do that with a lot of artists where you throw up a couple condenser mics on the sides of the stage pointing out into the crowd, you know, and then just mix those into their ears a little bit. And then it just kind of sounds, if they walk to this side of the stage, you know, you'll have them panned so they can hear them, you know, they'll hear stuff over here and they'll hear stuff. And if somebody says something over there in the crowd or somebody's like, woo, like yelling, it's just, it gives them that perspective that like, oh, that guy, I heard that guy in this ear and he's on this side and I heard that guy in this ear. And it just sort of, there's ways to kind of create this environment that, that is more comfortable and more palatable for people that really hate that studio, you know, vibe. And that's why you see a lot of like what I'm doing right now. I got one of these out. That's just in case my dog starts barking, but it's a lot of artists you'll see, they like wear one out and that's what they're doing. They're just trying to hear the room. You know, they're trying to get that feel back that they're missing from plugging up both of their ears. But
that's the one thing I've heard can be really dangerous though, right? For your hearing that you're.
Yeah. Cause then you got one ear that's just being seriously abused and the other ear is like, yeah, you know, and the other ear, who knows how much, you know, you're hearing all this. So you're like, oh man, let me balance this. So then you start changing volumes and then this is too loud. You know, when instead of having this ear just like screaming and then this one's got all the noise, you put them both in, you can have everything right here and it's great for your hearing. And you just really need to work with your engineer and just, you know, or if you're doing it yourself, you know, like people get these Behringer mixers and you get a wireless in-ear pack or even hardwired in-ears and like you can experiment and just mess around and be like, oh, I thought I'd really like to hear a lot of keyboard, but really I don't want to hear any keyboard for the most part, and maybe just on this song, you know, which is a great way where digital consoles do things that analog consoles can't, where you have snapshots. You know, I run probably if a band is doing 12 songs, sometimes I'll have in the neighborhood of like 40 to 50 snapshots. You know, you can have a snapshot where it's like the intro of the song has a snapshot that's separate from the first verse because there's a loop that's playing in the background that's really integral to everyone staying in time at the beginning of the song. But then during the verse, you don't really need that because the drummer comes in. So you got to have you fire a snapshot and it brings down the loop in everybody's ears, but keeps everything else. So there's a lot of that going on during the show that takes a while to program. You got to program all that stuff. And, you know, you have to basically do it all by hand and just find out what people like. And, you know, it can get a little tricky.
Behind a desk moving sliders anymore, right?
It is, but you get yourself in the ballpark.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's not it. But
you don't have to be like, oh god, like
I get it that you're doing that, but that's not the only thing you're doing. Like,
yeah,
because you're taking care of like how many people at 1 to 4 at one time singing, and probably everybody wants their own thing, and
yeah, you have 3 singers and then the 4 band guys.
Yeah,
and it's like, you know, everybody wants their own thing and everybody wants something different on every song. So it's like you can't just do one move, which a lot of times on analog consoles, if you run the mixes post fader, you know, then you have your main fader, and whatever you do with that fader will affect every mix after it, you know? So it's one of those things where a lot of times I'll run like the main artist post fader, and then I'll run the rest of the band pre fader. So I can set all their mixes and have aux send changes happen at snapshots, and then have the snapshots either not affect the artist or just do minimal stuff. And then I can use DCAs and just use the actual faders and mix it without affecting any of the band or affecting anyone else. But I'm like mixing for the artist. I had to do that with Alanis. I mean, she, you know, there were a lot of stuff, and she plays harmonica into the same mic she sings into. So the difference in SPL from a mic here with somebody singing into it and a harmonica is like insane. So like there were certain things you had to do involving snapshots with that, where you could just do like a 20 decibel reduction at like the hit of a macro. Like you could program a button to do that. But yeah, before that stuff was a thing, you're grabbing a fader, you're even grabbing a head amp, you know, you're grabbing like the gain knob and being like, okay, and then you got to get it back up when she starts singing, or, you know,
they're on the stage going like this.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, oh God. And at the same time, like the drummer's like, something's wrong. And you're like, why is this all happening at the same time? Yeah, that's like the monitor guys struggle a lot of the time. You're just like, you got to pretty much watch, you know, 8 people all at the same time. You have to constantly just be scanning the stage. Like, okay, this guy needs something cool. And then keep scanning like as you're fixing that issue. And it's a lot. You really, really have to like just pay attention, be on your toes.
Brian, who asked the question about working with a monitor guy, said, I've never worked with anybody that smart. You're on a whole other level than the guys that we're running sound for us.
Well, you gotta educate them, man. Educate them. Just be like, hey, man, just listen to me. This is what I want to do. Like, can we do this? Can we experiment? Because chances are they know how to use the gear. You can maybe just kind of steer them a little bit to the right end result. You know.
We need to tell Dave Timlin he's too old to call me Mr. S.
Yeah, I called you Mr. Sooner, and I was like, why did I do that?
You're too old for that voice. Let's see. Corona, your friend out in Washington, I don't know if that's somebody that I would know.
I'm not sure.
Maybe because they knew what Clingers and Readers Cafe were.
Probably. I believe that's my friend Eric.
Who's your dream artist?
Me? Oh,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
Wow.
Brian asked if you were an A student in high school.
Fiction can be fun.
So, unfortunately, school 20 years ago, we're not necessarily set up to channel people's passions. And
sure, yeah.
I think that we're starting to see a change in that. Actually, Johnny would be really interested to know that right now they built recording studios in the school. There's a room that's separated, has 3 booths in it. The booth is soundproofed a little bit. I mean, they had to put a glass wall on one wall. So it kind of messed that up a little bit, but then they bought some good microphones. They have Pro Tools. They had a class. I'm not sure if that's still what's going on with that right now, but they had a class where they're doing like recording, and they're working with AMP. Have you ever heard of AMP?
Yeah.
The studio down around Hanover. They're working with them. They come in, they work with the kids. A couple of our kids have gone out and interned. If Johnny was in school when that was going on, man, you'd have been fire. Like,
man, I would have loved it. That would have been great. Yeah. But for, at the time for me, it was just, I mean, you remember for me, like I saw an opportunity because I wanted to just play music and like skateboard and just be myself and try to express myself artistically and make music and just create and just all this stuff. And I just didn't feel like I was in the right environment. And with my mom being a teacher, I mean, you remember, you were one of the teachers where you're like, I don't think it, but I left, you remember I left halfway through my junior year. I left and I was like, I think I'm going to try to do this thing. And my mom homeschooled me, and I had a woman come once every 2 weeks for like a homeschooling program from the state. And I finished all my stuff and I graduated like close to a year early. And then I was just like, all right, here we go. Now I can focus and just try to do whatever it is that I feel like I need to do. Like the mothership has not beamed me up yet. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of floating here in space, trying to figure this out and playing music and trying to meet people, and do whatever. And yeah, if there would have been something like that at school, like it's amazing that they're doing that for kids now like that. I think that that's super important. Because not everyone, is going to go to college, and not everyone's going to be like into business, and not everyone's going to follow the same path. And if you nurture something that maybe seems a little off the wall, like getting into music production or something like that. It's just like what the benefits that you'll see in these kids and stuff. It's mind blowing, man. It's amazing. That's
next time you're in Hanover, you're gonna have to come over and check it out.
Oh, absolutely.
But
absolutely.
We're at 59 minutes and 55 seconds. Every day
flew by.
Every day that every day that we do this, we do a guitar of the day, we do a pedal of the day. Normally up front, we jumped into it with Johnny right now, but we have a guitar of the day, we have a pedal of the day. We're gonna do those if you have time, Johnny. We'll do them real quick.
Yeah, I got time.
I'm here. Why don't you share the guitar that you said that you were going to share? Because I think our geeks that are hanging out would really enjoy this.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So this is a SG Custom Bohemian. And you can see it's this very interesting blue color, and you can kind of see the wood grain through it, you know? It's called Blue Sky. It's awesome. It's the Bohemian. They made 100 of them in the custom shop. They did 5 different colors, 20 of each color. They did a really cool green called Sage. They did one called Mink. But I actually got this from Sean Stockman, who we saw the video clip at the beginning of the show. Like, this was his road guitar, like that section of the show where they play. He had a Gary Clark Jr. And he was like, man, I want a different SG. I want to try something with, because the Gary Clark's awesome, but it's 3 P90s, and it's kind of, you know, it's a little different, you know, to try to find the tone that he was looking for. He was having a hard time getting, so he ended up getting this in it, and I fell in love with it the day he brought it on stage. I was like, man, that guitar, if you ever get rid of that thing, let me know. And then when the time came, he was like, I think I'm going to let a couple guitars go. And I was like, all right. And he gave me like the deal of a lifetime on this thing. Like, I won't even mention it, but it was like people would be upset. They'd be like, what? But yeah, he gave me the deal of a lifetime, man. He's a great guy. They're all really great guys, and this has been my favorite guitar during quarantine for sure. I mean, I didn't have it. I got it in November of last year, and then I spent all of December in Asia, and then got back and did the holidays, and then all this stuff happened in January, and I actually didn't get it back to the house until the end of January when it was in storage in Las Vegas, and when we finally got back there, I was able to fly home with it. I've just been playing it nonstop.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a beautiful guitar. That color is what sold me right off the bat. I was like, what is that?
I'm a fan of that. And then pedal of the day.
Yeah.
He has a pedal. He has a pedal that I've wanted to check out for a long time, and he has it on here. So check this out.
It's on my board, so I just have to. The Replicator. I found a guy on Craigslist that was. I mean, he was just like a everyday player, I think, and he wasn't that into it. I think it had a little bit too much going on for him, you know, because it is. I mean, it's got a tape cartridge. I mean, it's analog. It has some quirks like analog stuff does. You know, sometimes you got to reset. You got to do the tape deck release, and sometimes you got to do little things to get it to function. But it works really well, and it sounds absolutely incredible. Like I'm just a sucker, like I said earlier, for analog anything, and this has been like every time I fire up my rig.
Hold the board up one time before you put it down. Hold that up. Get it see if we can get it in. Let's just check it out because people like that. Because we have been talking about pedal boards. So what do we got? We got JHS on there. Visitor, is that Walrus?
The Visitor is Old Blood Noise Endeavors.
Wow.
Yeah.
We learned the other day when we talked to Colt, there is a little bit of connection between those guys. The 1980, that's cool, man. That looks really cool.
Yeah, the 81 is actually shout out to Eastside Music Supply. If you can see that, that's my favorite, like probably my favorite shop in Nashville, man. I go and those guys are great. They put a bone nut on a flying V for me and did like the best job ever. They just like those guys are great. But this is the 1981 their edition. Their like shop is painted olive green, like that's my favorite color. And I was just like, I'm gonna wait for one of those, and they had me on a list when they got them in, and they sound great, man. Those 81s, man, I like them. They sound. I guess it's essentially like a rat mod. It's like a rat mod kind of, but it's just I mean, it sounds great. It sounds great. So does that JHS. The Visitor is a little funky. It's you can put like a tremolo into another tremolo, or you can do it's like 2 stages. You can put like a tremolo into a chorus or in a phaser, and it gets real warbly, and you can get some really crazy modulation stuff out of that. Yeah, some of that other stuff is just that white one at the top I built. That's basically I built a clone from scratch of a Boss slow gear. Remember those things?
Yeah.
It's like an envelope filter, you know? I wanted one, but they're pretty expensive and they're kind of hard to find. So I was like, I'm just going to get the schematics and build one. So I built that one while I was on tour, I'm pretty sure. I think I built that while I was on tour with Rihanna when I was just in hotels and in rehearsals and stuff. I would just get out my soldering iron. I had my toolbox with me and I'd just work on it here and there. And I also made some little amps, some little 9-volt like pocket amps for the monitor engineer and the guitar tech. Became a good friend of mine. I built him some stuff. I made a fuzz pedal on that tour for the guy, like the Live Nation rep on that tour. I made him a like single diode fuzz pedal. Yeah, I mean it's a simple board, but it's got pretty much what I need, I guess, for now. You know how that goes. I'm sure everyone watching also knows how that goes. It's got what I want for now. Tomorrow I'm going to find something.
Tomorrow I'm going to find something.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Two questions. You said Flying V in my ears. My wife is forbidden, so now I really, really want one.
Oh man!
She said no Flying V's, and I'm like, okay, so where do I get one of those?
You gotta get one. Dude,
Somebody asked, what is your favorite amp to use? And then check this out.
Ever or in my possession?
You see?
Hey, look at that!
There you go.
Jen came out and saw all the guys in DC. It was awesome. We had a great time. That was cool. My favorite amp to play ever, or my favorite amp that I have here that I play?
What do you use? What are you using? They care more about what you're using.
Well, I have this. So let's see if I can point here. So yeah, this little guy is just like the Pro Junior 3 that I've had for a while. It's like a purple, like Guitar Center special kind of thing that's like purple and tweed. But I've been playing this one quite a bit. It has the Boogie sticker on it and the Pigtronic sticker. I actually bought that from Eastside Music Supply. It is a Fender Champ modded Epiphone. What did they call those? The junior or something. Yeah, but they're like everyone mods.
A couple tubes in the back and one knob, right?
Like a 5-watt deal. Yeah.
Exactly. But this one's been modded, so it has 2 knobs now. One of them's a push pull. When it's in, the tone knob is disengaged, and it's a Fender Champ like kind of like an OG sort of Fender Champ mod clone, and then when you pop it out, it goes to like a later version of the Fender Champ when they added a tone knob, and it changes the circuit completely. So that's how it was explained to me. It had a standby switch added. There's an RCA smoke tube in there. He changed the power supply. He changed everything, and I was like, well, why does it have a Pigtronic sticker and that Boogie sticker, and the cabinet's kind of funky? Apparently, I believe this is the information I was given. If I'm wrong, hopefully someone can figure this out, but the owner of Pigtronics built that just built it. He as a project amp. And then he brought it into Eastside Music Supply in Nashville and was like, hey, I'm getting rid of some stuff, maybe just sell this. Or somebody he gave it to brought it in and sold it or something. But I need to try to get into. I actually wanted to send him an email and be like, "Hey, do you remember this thing with the picture of it? Did you build this? It's got like a signature on the back, and then somebody wrote "Enjoy" with like some letters backwards. Like it's a pretty quirky little amp, but it sounds phenomenal. Like I've been playing. That's pretty much. I mean, you can see the cord hanging out of it. That's the one I've been playing.
So
yeah, maybe he'll get on after this, and he can.
If he says yes, we'll have you both on.
Right, he was busy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
If you look at his Facebook feed, he's really busy because he's doing all Supro and Pigtronic stuff. But maybe if we get him on, we'll be able to get that question answered.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating little thing, man. It sounds great, and I got it for like $275, which is like the price was right. I played through it once and was like, "What?" Cab in the head. So, and then that orange TH30, that thing's great too. That Marshall cab I've had for a long time. I got it from a friend of mine actually in Hanover. I bought that cab and a head from him years and years ago for like $200 or something, and I've just kept it. And that orange sounds pretty good through there. And I also have a PV VTM 120. I don't know if you remember those. They were kind of like a copy of the JCM 800, but they have the little dip switches in the front, so you can do kind of the mods that a lot of these hair bands were doing and stuff at the time. You can kind of do them in and out as you choose. I have one of those that I like traded my brother like a bowl of soup for it or something. I don't even know. Like it was like I like got it from my brother somehow.
That was a very biblical reference there.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So I think we're about an hour and 10 minutes. So we're going to wrap them up.
Awesome.
I don't know.
Are there any questions that you saw that maybe I missed or somebody that needed something?
Jim said that he thinks that the Pigtronics amp has a completely new circuit board in it, if you remember.
Yeah, I think the guy gutted it and just used it as a chassis. Like it's got all new everything in it. I mean, and when I saw the price on it, I was like, the power supply alone in that thing was like $80, you know?
Wow.
So I had to scoop it up.
Well, and he would have, because they own Supro, they would have plenty of amp parts sitting around if you wanted to go in there and play with it.
Yeah. It's crazy. Look, like where the larger tube has been put in, because I think they come with like a 12AX7, and it's got this like, I can't remember the designation, it's got this old RCA tube in there. And he had to like...
Is it pretty big? Is it pretty big? Like
it's not that big. It's about similar size of a 12AX7, but it's just a little fatter, and it's got like an interesting bottom to it. But he had to like cut the metal in the chassis out, and it's hilarious because it's like you can totally tell that like somebody just made this for themselves, and they were just like, I'm doing this thing. It's like awesome because it looks like almost like tin snips to like cut the hole in the metal. Like it's super cool.
Nice.
It's really quirky and then that weird purple cover on the front. And I have a Jelly of the Month Club pin in the corner there.
That's awesome.
It's a honey of a tree, Clark.
Yep, exactly. Real beautiful.
This for me, man, has been, like we've done, like you said, we've done a bunch of these interviews. We've interviewed like some really crazy players and some owners of these pedal companies and stuff. But like catching up with you and like finding out what you've been up to has been probably the most special one for me. I love looking at the chat and seeing some names that I recognize too. That's been really cool. So I don't know where to go.
This has been great.
We'll keep talking. Maybe we'll do something else again. And
for sure. And I'll definitely let you know next time I'm up that way. I'll get a hold of you guys. Hopefully all this is blown over by then, man. The quarantines and things, because this has been crazy. I know I'm going to be off work for a while. That's for sure. Because think, concerts. Concerts were one of the first things to go. As soon as they say no crowds over 250 people, it's pretty much like all of us in the touring world. Like that's like, okay, well, that's our job. It's pretty much everything we can do. But hopefully the taper on the other side, I'm sure there'll be some sort of mirrored taper on the other side where it'll be like, okay, now crowds of 10, now crowds of 50, now hopefully that has more of an exponential curve on it, and it happens quicker than
Yeah, hopefully.
Than a lot of other stuff.
Your wife is agreeing that you're very special in the chat, and I just want to thank you to her, and she's doing a good job of getting you under control and taking care of you. And I appreciate that. I appreciate her for that very much.
Me too. More than I can ever express. That's for sure.
Yes, she must be very special.
She is. She's awesome.
Yeah, she must be very special.
Yeah.
So, was there anything else? I'm looking real quick. A lot of people saying great guests, that they enjoyed the show. Thanks for coming on. I mean, that was awesome.
Anytime.
When you're in Hanover, maybe we'll slip over to the high school, do something, get you to see
and track something. Yeah.
See what should have been there when you were there. But
right.
Do something like
Where
that.
Where did they put it?
Talk to the kids about.
Definitely.
They need to see that kind of stuff, that what people are doing and what can be done, and all that passion. Like this idea that if you get passionate about something and you put that energy and that time into that passion, you can live a life where you go to work every day, but you don't really go to work every day.
That's the secret of life. I heard that at a very young age. Somebody was like, secret of life is make sure you never feel like you're working a day in your life. If you love your job, you got to love what you do,
Yeah.
And I was like, I took that to heart. I was like, man, this is going to be tough because there's not a lot of stuff that I'm super into. And the stuff that I am into is kind of tough to break into. So,
you did it, man.
Thank you, man. Very fortunate. And everyone along the way has been super supportive and nurturing. And, hopefully I didn't say too many wrong things on here. Gave people the right shout outs and stuff. I saw some people, like Danny in the comments and people like that were integral to me becoming who I am. It's awesome that they're still here, and they're checking this out. It's just really cool.
Yeah, thanks to Danny too for that first. He was the guy that did the first interview and made the decision to hire you, man.
Yeah, that was all him. He's responsible. Right on, guys.
Well, it's not the circus, but
yeah.
Yeah, for me, man. I really
tough. Maybe I'll run out and join your brother and blow things up.
There you go.
That's really interesting for me. I'm super jealous because I've never been able to start a sentence by saying, so I met them when I worked for the circus.
Yeah.
I can't bust that one out, but
it's a thing.
Just two real quick things, not to belabor because we're 15 minutes over, but I had a son who's in the 11th grade. Not a big fan of school, probably not as driven as you, but can you give me one nugget that you got from high school? It doesn't have to be from your biology teacher in the other window, but some nugget you got from high school that you're like, all right, high school is worthwhile, because I'm going to run out of this room and share that with him the second we're done.
You missed the point where he said he never mind.
Yeah, right. But he left early. I got that.
Yeah. But
I joined the circus, so I don't
exactly.
say that.
But I do. Sometimes I do think back on that, and I do kind of think, what if I would have just stayed there and done my thing, And for me, it was like the social skills that you develop from going to school, and just like being around lots of different people and having to figure out how to, just coexist, and that especially I feel towards the end of a high school career is like really important, because that's when people really start kind of getting nervous and getting scared and almost opening up a little more. At least that was my experience, because I was out of school at the time, but all my friends were still there. So like when I would talk to people, it was like people you really go through a lot your senior year and your junior year. You're like, what am I going to do? Like I have to go join the world. Like I have to get out there and figure stuff out. And am I going to college or whatever? But that social environment, sometimes I wish I would have had that a little more, instead of just kind of going off and doing my own thing. I wish I would have stayed behind and had that camaraderie of graduation and just all that really cool stuff that I think is super important, that I missed out, that I honestly missed out on, and that's, a regret, but also you got to go with, you got to go with what you feel your gut is telling you to do, but I would say that, man, that those lessons that I feel like you can learn in that time, that 11th, 12th grade time, is like just your peers are supporting you and you're learning from them, and you're seeing people who want to get into college and do this and how they're struggling with whatever and trying to figure out what they're going to do. And you can kind of absorb all that information, process it, and then, try to apply it to what you want in your life, And that's one of the things I feel like I really missed out on, because I didn't end up going to school until I was 22, I think. So like from the time I left school and graduated to the time I was 22, I was just like playing in bands and doing shows and doing this and really like developing, my career path and just, really blossoming my passion. But I could have waited a year and maybe done the same thing. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I was 18, I could have waited another year and then got and still done all that stuff, because I waited to go to school anyway for audio engineering. And that was also because I really wanted to make sure it was what I wanted to do, because I didn't have a lot of money. I was like, do I want to spend $30,000 a year on a college for something that I'm not sure I really want to do? I was going to go for something music oriented, or originally I was going to go to culinary school. I wanted to be a chef. And I was like, I don't know if I really want to do that. I worked in a couple restaurants and was like, yeah, no. I thought that seems like a pretty high stress environment. And then I ended up ultimately putting myself in that even higher stress environment. But it's just, that's the little nugget I guess, man. If that helps at all, hopefully. But yeah, man,
that's good.
Yeah, that's important. It's important because
I can certainly, go ahead.
Yeah, well, those people are also going to help you remember your life, like Dave and Kyle and like all these guys that I remained friends with through all the years. Like they help you as you get older. You start to forget stuff, and you start to, you get also wrapped up in things. It's good sometimes. Like your friends are almost like extra memory banks, and it's good to like, especially like your schoolmates and stuff. It's like they'll bring something up, and you'll be like, oh my God, I totally forgot about that. That was awesome, right? That was a great experience in my life. And then you can like kind of feed yourself with that good energy that you totally forgot about. That was like something that's like a part of you, And that's what I would say would be like the most important thing. Because I did lose touch with some people because I dropped out, because I left school. I lost touch with some people that I really wish I, still was friends with and still talk to. And I'll reach out every once in a while, but it's hard,
So stay in school, kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Thank you, man. It's really great getting to know you. I understand why you're sought after in the industry. I'm sure your stage side manner is second to none. I was having dinner with my parents, and they asked about the show, and I'm like, yeah, we're going to have one of Jason's friends on that he does monitor mixes, so he has to deal very closely with the actual artist. His world is very different than the people who are mixing what we would hear, and so I can see why you're very sought after. It's been a pleasure to spend this afternoon with you. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
And I do make it down to Nashville. I got a couple friends down there, so maybe we'll come down and
get a hold of me.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be awesome. Right on, guys. Thank you guys so much, man. This has been amazing, and man, it's awesome. Just all the questions and stuff, man. This has been amazing. Thank you guys. Heck yeah.
So, salute everyone. So we get a question right after you say it.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a question you can answer with one number.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So we're gonna answer this question one number. No. BV Ninja, who is been on. I've seen it on the internet a lot. I know he is friends with like the guys on that pedal show and stuff like that. Is it okay? If that's okay, here's the question. What is the most number of different in-ear mixes you've had to deal with at one show?
Ooh, 15, I think. As an engineer. As an RF guy, far more.
As an engineer, 15 as an RF. Well, you were saying
as a radio frequency guy, when you have all the, far more. I mean, everyone in Stevie's band was basically on wireless in-ears. So, I mean, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of mixes. That's why I had two engineers. There's one guy that just focused on Stevie and was like, I just need to make sure this guy's good, and then somebody else doing the band. So it just, it becomes a lot. But yeah.
Brian Landers said it wasn't me this time. Brian Landers is normally the guy that tries to sneak in one more question.
Nice.
We don't go on. So with that, thank you, Johnny, for coming on. Thank you, some of our old Hanover people that have been in the chat. Thank you to everybody else that's in the chat. Really cool to see some other former students' names that I know too. Johnny makes a kill. See, I almost didn't read Dave's comment because it said Johnny makes a killer Shocker Chesapeake, and he meant chicken. But Shocker has a whole nother meaning to people from Hanover, and we're not going to get into that.
Dude, Corona my bone knows best.
Oh, thanks again, Johnny. We'll talk to you again. And I think with that, Pat, we're out, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
With that, I'm PJ on behalf of the Beard, a.k.a. for today, Mr. S, reminding you, no matter what you hear, you never have too much gear, especially through a live amp.
Yeah.